What's up, Meta Nerds? This video's all about the Millennium Falcon. Manufactured by Corellian Engineering Corporation, the company that had been making similar looking ships since the time of the Old Republic, most notably in the form of the XS Stock Light Freighter. The Falcon is a model YT-1300, one of the most popular lines of ships in the YT series. It was intended to serve as your average cargo ship, and because of its cheap price of only 100,000 credits, less than the cost of an X-Wing, and because of the fact that it was easy to maintain and customize, the YT-1300 quickly became the most common used cargo ship in the entire galaxy. This is actually why it was loved by smugglers, and eventually Han Solo, as it was so common that it didn't attract any attention, and if authorities did put out an alert for an old beat-up 1300, they might have to stop hundreds of vehicles at a larger spaceport. Combine this with that easy maintenance, and the ability to make it incredibly fast and deadly, and you see why this was the perfect smuggling ship, acting as the Star Wars equivalent of a sleeper car on Earth. It had a top speed of 1,050 km per hour, or 652 miles per hour, making it as fast as some of the best starfighters like the ARC-170 and the X-Wing, while of course being much larger. At a length of 34.37 meters, or 113 feet, it was 5 times the length of a TIE fighter, and at 25.61 meters, or 84 feet wide, it was 2.5 X-Wings across, and at 8.27 meters, or 27 feet tall, it stood nearly as high as an AT-ST. Its standard armament was mostly aimed at countermeasures for pirates, with 7 flares, 2 laser cannons, a quad laser turret, and 2 proton torpedo launchers. But later owners would install an additional quad laser turret on the bottom, and 3 different types of sensor scrambling tech, specially designed for evading authorities. And since it was a cargo vehicle, it of course had 2 tractor beam emitters, and a 100 metric ton capacity, about the weight of 25 banthas. But this only seems to be referring to the internal cargo capacity, as the front prongs of this ship were designed to carry enormous shipping containers. And it was these larger shipments between orbital shipyards for which the YT-1300 was most used. But let's go ahead and take a look inside of this ship to see where everything was and how it all worked. Starting up at those prongs, we see the freight loading arm, which helped move the cargo into position, with the concussion missile tubes located right above this. A floodlight was located here, and the exterior of this ship was covered in several degaussers, which helped to remove the magnetic field effects that might affect electronics and make this ship more detectable. Then we have one of several sensor arrays, and we can see the landing jets, which were used to make a more stable landing. Another countermeasure was the anti-concussion field generator, followed by a deflector shield generator, which sat right under the deflector shield projector. The cargo hold starts here, and then filled up this section, which also housed the life support systems and another shield generator. This is right next to the cockpit, which was right in front of the airlock, and which also housed the boarding ramp. This hallway circled the interior of the ship, and was modified by later owners to include secret compartments hidden in the floor. After the ramp we have the rear hold, and we can actually see some of the landing gear, which was right across from the engineering station, which helped to monitor the enormous Quad-X power core that generated so much heat that it needed to be dispelled via these 4 exhaust vents, and which had to power the original Class II hyperdrive, the same class used in the Imperial Star Destroyers, but which was later improved to the legendary Class 0.5 hyperdrive that made it one of the fastest ships in the galaxy. The iconic curved blue glow of its sublight engines was actually a very practical design, as this area was attached to the engines via these thrust manifolds, and then contained double layers of these apertures, which gave the pilot incredible control over the direction of the thrust, making this seemingly unwieldy ship actually quite maneuverable in the right hands. Moving from an engineering marvel to the most mundane area, we see sleeping bunks and the kitchen, which was actually installed much later as a wedding gift to Leia. Moving through this hallway, we can see the water recycling units, which sat right under the main sensor array. This led into the main quarters, which had additional sleeping areas, as well as seating, and of course a Dejaric table. Here we can see the subspace radio, and then through this hallway, you could climb up into the quad turbo laser, and then in later modifications, you could climb down into the second quad laser cannon. What's interesting about this second seat is that it had to be placed right next to the fuel tanks, which supplied all of the weapons and the engine, with the main fuel line running right past these areas and up into the main reactor. Of course, this ship is the result of numerous modifications made by its long series of owners, stretching back to 60 BBY. And since the complete history of the Millennium Falcon will be a long video on its own, let's end here with the complete breakdown of this ship, and we will go over the surprising and convoluted history of the Falcon in our next video. So hope to see everybody in part 2, but most important of all, remember, don't judge a ship by its model number, and the Force will be with you, always.